Hi guys, up to now we have been animating text layer through the text transform properties. We can move the layer around, you can rotate it, do lots of things. But what happens if I want to animate every character of the text layer? For example, something like this, as simple as this. I want the characters to come one by one, or even how to animate words in a text layer. So After Effects has a robust type engine where you can create amazing animations just like this. This is per character animation where the characters are coming from top. This is per word, and you have ramp ups and ramp down. In this section, we are going to learn all about per character animation and how you use all the tricks and tips that will make your animations for text layers, outstanding and awesome. I'll see you in the next lecture. Hi guys, in this lecture we want to look at the stroke of text or type, and we want to look at the fill also. Like we have done in shape layers, we used a shape, for example here, we had the fill and the stroke just very handy here. In text layer we don't have this. In text layer it becomes a bit more complicated, and also the fill and stroke do not appear inside the timeline here. We don't have any options, though we can add, I would say, some options for the fill and the stroke. We'll see that later. Okay, so what do we have here? We can add a stroke to a character. For example, if I choose this one, or to a text, and I've chosen a very thick font here because it's useful. I can click here and give the stroke a color. So now I have a tiny stroke. I have the stroke width here. I can increase it and I can decrease it. Now notice what's happening here. I have some special settings that I put. There is fill over stroke, stroke over fill, all fills over all strokes, and all strokes over fills. Whatever, it's a big word. So fill over stroke, that means my fills are over the strokes to a certain limit. If you increase the stroke more, then the stroke will start eating on the fill of the other characters in the word. Then you can go to all fills over all strokes, and then whatever they put the stroke, it will always be above or under the fill. In fact, if you do the contrary, then all strokes will be over all fills. Of course, you come to a point where you don't see anything. This is very interesting for animations. You can do quite something like blur it up and then it becomes some letters or something like this. I'm not going to do animation. I'm just going to bring it to your attention. Now, there is the menu here. If you click, and you can reset the character from all this. This is not special to 2015. This exists, I don't remember, but for very old versions it still exists. There is the line join here. You can have miter, you can have round and bevel. Let's put it back to miter. In fact, the default is miter, and let's go to this K here. You notice here it's extremely sharp. If you come to the line join and go to round, you will find it became a bit round, which is a bit nicer. It has a great effect when you are using some types, some fonts. You can really use it. Then you have another one which is bevel. It doesn't appear very much, but they are trying to make it a bit beveled. Okay, let's get it back to round. I like round. And we have seen here, we have fill over stroke, stroke over fill, and so on. So this is pretty easy. If you come to your more options here, you have the fill over stroke here. Per character palette, all fills over stroke. We'll see per character palette later on. And we have all fills over all strokes, and we have all strokes over fill. So actually, this is what I'm trying to tell you here. You have the possibility to add stroke, and you have the possibility to add fill, and later on we'll see how to animate them. And you have the possibility to add the stroke over the fill and the fill over the stroke, and all this manipulation. So that's all I wanted to bring to your attention in this first lecture in animating per character, because later on we might be able to use it. Thanks very much for listening. I hope it was useful. I hope I didn't confuse you, because it's just like a couple of options and things will go all right with you. Thanks very much. I'll see you in. Hi guys, welcome to this new lecture and to this new section even. We are going to look per character animation. Per character animation is about animating a character at a time, or a bunch of characters at a time. And it's not about animating the whole layer. Per character animation is very much used. You must, grasp it and understand it and use it as much as possible. It's not outdated. If you work with all the properties that you have, you will be able to do extraordinarily beautiful animations. And I want in this section to make sure that you are really very familiar with per character animation, which is very important in After Effects. Now you notice that when we create a shape layer, we used to use the transformation here, which were a transformation of the whole layer and all the characters together. You know, that's how we rotate, and we had opacity and stories like this. Let's reset this one. But now we have another option that is inside the animate here. If you click on the arrow next to animate, you will find that you have several sections. One of them, the first one, is enable per character 3D. Then you have the properties here, anchor point, position. This is where you can do animation with the position properties, meaning the spatial properties. And you have here the fill color and the stroke. You have also the tracking, the line anchored, line spacing is about bringing character together and so on. You have two amusing ones that we will see later, and you have the famous blur. Now, how do we use this one? We first go to animate, and to give you a good example, I'm going to use the fill color RGB. I could use another one. Now let's change the color here because I know you cannot see red very well. I hope this is a better color. Cool. What happened here? It created an animator for me. So I added an animator using the add, and it has a range selector and it has a fill color. Fill color is the property that we are going to animate using the range selector. And that is very important. The range selector will determine how the fill color is going to be animated. Now notice something else. All my characters turned into the fill color that I chose. And also I have two kind of handles here, one on the left and one on the right, that we'll see how they work. If I open the range selector, we are brought back to the start, end, and offset. It's the same concept as trim pass and other styles inside the shape layers. Remember the offset pass and so on and so on. So how does it work? The start is scribing the letters from left to right. So this is your start, just like the trim path. So the range selector will work on the fill color like we said. The start starts from the left and goes to the right. Now you notice how they are coming back to white. So if the start is at 35%, it means 35% of the characters are not selected to achieve the fill color that I put here, or the property. If I take it to 0 now, all of them are selected, so 0% is deselected. I'm going to talk about selected, deselected a lot, but try to cope with it. It's very easy. Now, in the end, or the end, operates the different way from the other side. Now I can see that like 77 of the characters are selected and the 23% is not selected. So that is the end and start. Also, you can look here, you have some kind of selector that you can move around. This is the start selector. You know it start because the arrow is pointing towards or inside the layer, the text layer, and you have the end selector here. You can move them by hand and decide what to do. So this is the start and the end. The offset operates a bit differently. We'll see about that. So it can offset left and right, and we can create quite some nice animation using wrap up and wrap down. Let's do a simple animation here. We click on the start, for example, and we go to half second and we make it 100%. So now the start and end, of course, will work on the fill color. This is the property. If you play, here you are, it's going from the color of the property, which is yellow, to the original color. Now, here you are, this is the first animation. Let's do the other way around. Let's use the end. We keyframe the end here, put it at 0, for example. Go in the middle and put it at 100%. So they are now coming from the same side, but using the end. If you reverse the keyframes, keyframe assistant, time reverse keyframes, then it will work the other way around and it will go from the end to the beginning. So in short, what have we learned? That you can add an animator or a property if you want. You see here, I can add a property. I can choose from all these properties. The property will be created and a range selector for this property or several properties also will operate from start, end, and offset. And that's it. It's so simple, but yet extremely powerful. In the next lecture, we will use other properties such as position, scale, and skew, and we'll see how to work with them. Thanks for listening. I'll see you in the next lecture. Hi guys, welcome to this new lecture about character or per character animation. We already added an animator. We are going to see how we can add more properties and play with them around so you get very familiar with this system and create fantastic animations. By the way, if you are very subtle here and you do some animations combining all the properties, you can really get something wonderful. I remember having said that in the previous lecture. But it's important that you get to notice how to manipulate all these properties together. Now, before we created an animator here, I will delete that animator. I don't want it. I will create a new animator. I'm coming from text. I will come and add a position animator. Now, as soon as I add the position animator, I have the range selector, the start end, and I have the position. Let's animate. We click on the start. We start the keyframes and we go, I'm going to put it at 3 seconds so you can see it, and we go 100%. Of course, nothing is happening. Now, you see position here. You all know you have the tendency to come and click on position and start keyframing it. I mean, we are very used to keyframe the position. The position here will serve as an offset. For example, if I scrub it down, it will go down. Then from 0 to 100, it goes back into place. Of course, I could bring it from 0 to 100 for the start. It goes back in place. Or I can use 100 to 0 from the end. It goes down. So it's a reverse animation where you have two states. You can move from the first one to the second one and from the second one to the third one. I think it's obvious for you. Okay, so you notice the animation here is moving from down to up. I can take the position and increase it to take it out of the composition. And now you have a simple animation, not much. I would like you to notice a few things first of all. The first thing you want to notice is that there is only one character in transition, and that's very important. Second, there is the small X here. This is the anchor point of this character for per character animation. Now that you have noticed it, I will show you later how to change this one, and you will have, quite some amusing rotations if you like. Fine, so we added this one. Let's bring it back to inside the composition. Cool. Let's add another animator. Now, I can come to the text and add. If I add, for example, scale, I will have a second animator and I will complicate things, but it's very useful. Let's delete the second animator. We don't want a second animator. What we want is just to add a property. So we will come next to the animator and use the add button. It reminds you of shape layers, of course. You click and you can add property or selectors. You can have a range selector, so you can have another range selector here, a wiggly, which is very nice, and some kind of expressions. We'll see that by the end of the course. If you come to properties, you have all the properties again. Let's add, for example, a rotation. Now you offset the rotation and return it to its place. Let's offset it. We exaggerate a bit. Doesn't matter if it's nice. I don't add any keyframes, nothing, and I play my animation. You notice now the characters are going to go back into place from the position and with the rotation. And this is quite cool. You have to be a bit patient because the animation will become very interesting towards the end when you have learned everything. Fine, let's add another one. We come to animator and we add, this time let's add a scale. And this is my favorite here. Scale comes at 100%. You can decrease it or increase it. If you decrease it for 0, for example, nothing is shown, and then when you play, they come from small to big. That's cool. That's not really very cool. Nobody uses this. It's outdated now. But what is not outdated is this one. Okay, you make the scale very big and it goes back into position. You will notice that this one will be very beautiful later on. Fine. Another one we can add here is in the blur. If you add the blur, it comes at 0. You add the blur and now you have something happening. Of course, the blur will eat some of your processing powers, which is okay because it will render once and then it will work very nicely. Here you are. Now, this is not a transition. I need to create a transition. It's not practical for me that every time I take the text out of the composition. We can create a transition here using track maps. Of course, you can do that and it will be very interesting. We will do that. But also there is a simple way to do it here. We are going to add and we will work on the opacity. Here, if you put the opacity to 0, let me stop this one. You notice it starts from opacity 0, and then if you play, now it makes a lot of sense. And that's pretty cool because you have a real transition. Now, of course, you can make it shorter in time, but let's play with it a bit. So we come over here. Let me put back the opacity to 100%. I want to take the position over above. Okay, and I want to take the rotation on the other side. Nice, cool. I put back the opacity at 100% or 0, sorry, and then play the animation. Now this is starting to make sense as an animation. Of course, if you reduce the time, you have a very beautiful animation that's coming in. Here you are. We start from here, play. Fine, now you can adjust it. You notice how the characters are coming pretty nicely, one at a time, of course. Let's play it. Here you are. Now, also, what you can do is to come to the scale here, and instead of having both scales, let's make this one 0 and hike this one as much as you want. Now, notice the animation is happening. They're coming from further. Let's also get the rotation to 0. I'll just show you this one because it is pretty interesting. And you can see it in very many places where the characters come from top and come in. That's very beautiful. Now, we have used an animator, and we added several properties: the position, the scale, and the rotation, and opacity, and blur. That's pretty nice. You can change the values and work with it in a certain way that will get exactly what you want as the animation you're looking for. Cool. This is per character animation, adding a single animator and working on the transition. Now we have created a transition. There are many other things that we can do, and we will see them in the next lecture. Hi guys, welcome to this new lecture about per character animation. This is Luai with you from aeschoolonline.com, and I promise you I'm working much more on the schoolonline.com so I can make it perfect and you have a lot of information over there. Now, we want to learn about cascading per character animation here and investigate how to work with the offset. I am sure you have seen these animations on the web and maybe you're wondering how to do them. And this is the secret revealed, how to do these dropping characters, and we will work now with the offset. Let's add the animate, and we add the position. And we just make it upward. Take it up over here, for example. Cool. Now we come to the range selector, and we have, of course, start and an offset. We want to work with the offset. Now notice the job of the offset. If you scrap offset, is as simple as this. It will add its value to the end and the start. Now the end being 100%, adding the value to the end will become 145%. So it's 100%. You can see it over there. But if I put, for example, 10% for the end, you notice now the end is 55% and it's over here. So offset will add its value to the end and the start. So if it's at 50%, you can imagine the start being at 50% and the end at 60%. The difference is either in transition or above. That is mainly the case of offset. If I put the end at 40% and offset at minus 40%, now start will be minus 40, which is 0, we don't have negative, and an offset added together will become 0, so nothing is happening. If I keyframe the offset and go 2 seconds down the line and play with the offset, notice what's happening. If I play the animation now, you have always 40% of the text because of and always above. You notice here it's above. Fine, that's very beautiful. But we are not limited to this shape. If you notice the shape, 2 characters here and the above, the few characters above, we are not limited to that. Let's go to the advanced section. It's not really advanced, this section. And we have here shape. We are now in square. If we change, for example, to triangle, then it will make a triangle here. And you have a cute animation where it goes up and down with in the shape of a triangle. If you change to round, now you have the wave, and it's pretty cool. It's pretty speedy, the animation. Then if you have smooth, it will try to smooth it out. Cool. Now, if you go back to square, there is smoothness that will appear. Let me show you what smoothness. Now you notice here there are a few characters that are in between. Yeah. So the D here is in between, the E is coming up. This is because smoothness is 100%. If you put it to 0, characters now they are either down or up, and it's a very rigid animation where they go up or down. This is very useful also. Sometimes you really need it where the character just dropped and there is nothing in transition. Now this is about the offset, and you can use the others, ramp up and ramp down. We are going to focus on them. Let's take ramp up. Now the characters are all ramped up. I will go back to the offset and put it at 0 and put the end at 100%. This is the original state of ramp up. So the characters are gonna fall down. If you scrub through the end, for example, you notice they go up. If you scrub through the start, you notice how many characters are in transition. Very many of them. This is not the way to use ramp up yet. We will use it with the offset. Let's put back at 40% and the end at or the offset at minus 40%. Now, if you run through, you notice it's really coming down. Fine, this is beautiful, but not that beautiful. Okay, let's add more properties to see exactly how we can make it really beautiful. Let's close the advanced here and come to the range selector or the animator and add another property. For example, we want to add the scale. So let's make the scale pretty big. And let's add now another property, the blur, and blur it as much as our processor can take. Now notice the animation is coming pretty nice. Of course, the last one that we need is the opacity to make it invisible and then visible. Here is opacity, we put it to 0%. Now you have a somehow beautiful animation. Now what will be also very beautiful is to add another one, which is the fill and RGB. Instead of red, let's take another color, for example, that will, something like this, maybe it will work. And let's see how it's happening. You notice how it's merging colors. Green is not good. Let's take red. Okay. Yes, red is working. Now you can adjust it. For example, the position, if you move it to this side, you notice what's happening, how the characters are coming from this side more. I will push it more. Yep, that's the way. I will hike even more the scale. That's good. That's coming up cool. Okay, let's play it. And you notice you have a cascading animation that is very beautiful. Maybe it's too far up, so we bring it down. Yes, over here. And then here you are. You have a truly beautiful animation using the cascading. So this is the cascading animation. Of course, you have unlimited potential here. You can play with it, you know, enormously. Now, this is about the ramp up. Ramp down will work almost the same. If we come to the advanced and put a ramp down will operate just differently. So if you go from behind to the front, here is ramp down. So ramp down, actually what I will do is not to take it from -40 to, so what I will do here, I will put this is 0 and this is 40, and then it will work very nice from here. So it's taking out the text in a ramping way, and that's pretty beautiful. So your text can come in or come out of the screen. So this is about ramp up and ramp down, and you can play with it to make, you know, quite nice animations. Okay, let's go back to the ramp up. I want to show you simple things now. Since I showed you the best, I will show you simple things. We go back and we say ramp up, and we adjust here this one to 0 and this one to 40. Cool. So you have your animation coming from far and dropping in. Cool. We are going to go to position, delete the scale, leave opacity, and give it only rotation. Now we're going to see something that is very practical, and let's put it at 90, for example. Okay, so if I come back here, this is pretty practical that you can use. You see your characters, how they're coming up with the blur and the ramp up, and that's pretty cool. If you want to delete them a bit, maybe you make them, I don't know, 180 or -180, the way you like, and you will have your characters coming pretty nicely like this. I prefer 90, and I find it quite a nice animation. Here you are. I like it very much, and this is one small tip. Good. Now we have done this. That's very nice, but we have learned a lot about text. How about if we add an ellipse in form of a mask? If I come to ellipse here, I'll click in the middle, Control Shift, and make a mask. Then go, of course, to the source text and the path option and put this to mask 1. Then, of course, I want to make it reverse the path, take it to the outside and move it, the first margin, to the right place. Here you are. Let's play the animation now, and you have something pretty cool coming up. I am sure if you work on it, make it beautiful, the colors and so on, you can have something very beautiful. And this is how you can add other things that you have learned, like the path option here, and the path itself, the masks, even you can reverse the path, see what happens. Okay, things like this, it will become more interesting, the per character animation. I want to draw to your attention that in effects and presets, you have here in text, in animation presets, you have 3D text here, and there are very many of them identical to what I have done, and even sometimes very easy to use. Please try to look into this, but we are going to see them in the next lectures. So this is about ramp up and ramp down, and I gave you a few examples. I really hope you like them, and really hope that you will come here and start working on them and creating your own animation and your own style. See you in the next lecture. Hi guys, and welcome to this new lecture. In this lecture, we want to look at 3D for per character animation. And it's quite interesting, and it will make your animations really exotic, I would say. Now, please understand that I might not be explaining all the options. Some of them are too small, you can just do them on yourself. They are not so important to waste your time. If you need them later, you can see them. But it's important that you ask the question. If something I explained just a bit, you need more explanations, please ask the questions. If there is something I've seen on YouTube, or you have seen a certain animation, please ask about it, give me the link, I will look at it and give you the answers. I'm here to help you. I'm here to give you the best, so you learn After Effects and you learn whatever you want to learn, not only what I am saying in this course or I'm trying to teach here. There is a wide variety of options that you can explore and really come and ask your questions. Now let's start with 3D animation. First of all, my character here is too small. Let's choose it and make it bigger. Okay, before I make it 3D, I will align it, because you cannot align 3D. I will come to the text layer, twirl it down, and there is animate, and the first option is enable per character 3D. I will enable it. Now, when you enable it, nothing happens. Of course, it's a 3D layer. That's fine, but we are not going to work with the layer. We want to work with text. I will come and add an animator. Let's say we add position. Yeah, position will do. Now, what do you notice here? First of all, the position has the 3 parameters of 3D. I hope you went through the section of 3D and you did it all, and you know very well about 3D. Notice how every character is now in 3D. The first thing I would like you to do is to create an animation here. For example, for the start, just a simple one, nothing complicated, and then we go to 100%. Let's go to the position and use the Z plan. Okay, that's the one that is always coming up in 3D. We move it further away. Here you are. Let's move it to the end. Of course, we're gonna change these values, and let's preview our animation. By the way, every time you come here or here, it's gonna highlight this text, so don't think that it has is still appearing. Sometimes it's completely disappearing. I don't like using 3D and character, not all the time. I prefer per word. Per word is more interesting, and we still have the animation that will appear even better. I will come to advanced, and instead of using character here, I'm gonna use words. Now notice the difference here. So it's coming from far and it's coming in. That's pretty cool. That's your first animation. Of course, if you add the opacity, it's gonna appear differently. It's gonna disappear and come in. Let's add the opacity. We close the advanced here. Or yeah, okay. And we come here to the range selector and add the opacity. And make the opacity 0%. Now let's look at our animation. To do that animation using the layers, you will need 2 layers, and you need at least 5-6 keyframes to do it. Now here, just a simple keyframe system here, 2 keyframes. I already did the animation. Fine, that's one. Let's add something else. Let's go to property and add rotation, our famous rotation. Let's remove position for now. Cool, we have seen about position. Now what can I add for rotation? I will come over here. Let's put the opacity at 100%. Let's take the Y rotation and make it -90. Okay, of course they still appear. We put it at 0, and let's see what happens here. You notice how your words are turning per character, and this is quite impressive and very smooth. This is for the Y rotation. Well, how about if you use the X rotation on the X axis? If I give it -90, now your words are coming up. You notice that animation to do it with layers is really quite complicated, not easy as this one like here. Let's give them all -90, -90 just for fun and see what happens. Here you are. Quite smooth, quite nice. Let's bring back the position and move in the Z plan behind. Let's stay here. Okay. And see exactly now what do we have. Cool. So I'm trying to demonstrate to you. There is something else that you can bring in 3D. It's the anchor point. And here it has a lot of value. If you move the anchor point, you will notice how it's moving. Actually, it is the anchor point that is moving. Now, the rotation center has changed. It's very far. The anchor point is very far. Let's put it at 600. Now, you have an exotic animation here. Very nice. Look at it carefully. Cool. I will remove even the Y rotation. I put it at 0. And you have another one here. That's pretty nice. This is pretty difficult to do if you're using layers. What else can we do here? I will reduce the rotation or the position for the Z plan and come back here and take this one and put it up. Okay, notice how the anchor points are moving. Let's play it. Nice. Okay, so I'm trying to give you some tips here or some tricks. So now it's your turn. Go to After Effects, start your ad with property and enable 3D and start choosing all of them. Some of them are very simple to use. Some of them will present some challenges to be, fully mastered, but yet you will be able to use all of them and create your own animation. See you in the next lecture, and I hope you enjoy per character animation in 3D. Hi guys, and welcome to this new lecture, and I hope you're enjoying per character animation, and I hope I'm doing a great job. If I am, please give me 5 stars for this course as a review. I would really appreciate it, and you will help others also come into the course and learn the great things you are learning. Now in this lecture, what I want to do is to bring to your attention, and I'm saying bring to your attention, 2 major aspects, I will say, is the grouping alignment and the concept of anchor point for per character animation. We have a text layer here. It's a normal text layer. I want to go to the more option here, and you have an option here that is grouping alignment. Notice as soon as I choose grouping alignment, this small X's will start appearing, and I can move them around with the percentage. That is the vertical movement. I will undo, and that is the horizontal movement. But I will take them down, and notice how the horizontal is not like just moving. It's grouping them in a different way. You see, this is the grouping alignment, and this is, we'll say, the rule of the grouping alignment and how they are grouped. Of course, we have per character. If you go per word, now we have only 2 of them. And if you move the percentage horizontal and vertical, they mainly stay, at an equal distance. If you use horizontal and vertical, also they will stay at the same distance. Let's go back to, if you take line, of course you have 1. So we go back to character. You see how many there are. Let me put this to 0, and I will show you something else now. If you come to animate, you have here the skew. Let's bring it up. Now the skew will just skew your characters. It moves them in a fashionable way, left and right. That's fine. But what is the condition? Where is the anchor point here? It uses the anchor point of the character, or it uses the grouping alignment of the whole layer, if you like, or the characters in the layer. So let's put it to 0 and go to grouping alignment, and we notice that it is just below here. So if you skew, it's gonna skew according to this anchor point for each character. Fine. But then if you change this one and take it down or up, let's take it up, you notice that now it's not gonna skew from down here, it's gonna skew from up. So the lower part will start moving, and this is quite amazing. So a nice animation will be to make this dancing a bit. Then you know, grouping alignment, you can keyframe it so it can go up and down, and you have something pretty funny, by the way. Cool. Now let's go back to grouping alignment and put it to 0. There is the concept also of the anchor point here. We go to property and we add the anchor point. The anchor point is per character anchor point. If you take it down, okay, the letters will move. That's the concept of the anchor point. But you have changed the how the characters are going to skew, rotate, and scale. Okay, let's put it over here and try the skew. You notice it's skewing from a certain distance. Let's take them down, and you notice now the skewing happens from the upper side. This is a concept of the grouping alignment and the anchor point here. Of course, there is more to the anchor point than the skew. Let's put this one to 0 and put this one to 0. And let's bring in the rotation. The rotation now, it's difficult to demonstrate because they're going to start moving all over the place. But let's try. So I will have my anchor point, for example, down a bit. You know that if I use rotation, it's going to rotate on the anchor point. Now the anchor point is far, so rotation is far. If you increase the anchor point distance, and the rotation will be different. So here you can create quite some animation using this rotation. I'm not saying it's easy. You will need some imagination here to create something very beautiful. But nevertheless, if you take your layer down, for example, just to be naive, and you put it back, you have your text coming from down and up. Of course, that's quite good. You can also set the end and the start to create this animation. But now, if let's put it back to 0. Now, if you use the anchor point horizontally and vertically, you notice what's happening. The anchor point is very different from the grouping alignment because the anchor point is not moving and they are not getting nearer to each other. But if I start moving here also, now I have something else for the rotation, and it will rotate totally differently. You notice now, for example, these two, the M and the O, are very far apart, and the others are nearer. Almost I think the I and the O are on the same anchor point here. So this is something you want to use. Why I'm bringing this to your attention? Because if you come to preset an effect and go to animate, which we are going to do, and you go to text, and you use the 3D text here, there are so many presets. I will explain them in details. I don't know if you already went to that section, and most of them will use the grouping alignment, which is very tactical in per character animation. So just to bring it to your attention, you can also do some nice animation here. I will reset this one. Let's delete it altogether. Cool. I'm gonna bring it here and create with the position P. Let's create an animation. We take it outside and come to 1 second. We need the speedy and we bring it in here. Now I will go to the animate and bring in skew. So I did animate the layer. Okay, that's a layer animation. This is the layer animation. It's very simple. But now let's play with the skew. We come here. For once, we are going to keyframe the skew just for demonstration, though you can do it with the start and end. So I will keyframe the skew here at 0, and when the characters are coming here, I will move the skew to this distance. That's too much, but it will work. Then come to, it doesn't matter, and we make it back to 0. And actually what I want to do is this one here. So look what's happening here. You have a slant. It comes and it redressed. Not bad. It's pretty nice, by the way. Or you can make it a bit more abrupt. Cool. So your characters will come slant and then redress. So this was about grouping alignment and anchor point for per character animation. Now it's important that you go to After Effects and train and try to understand exactly how the grouping alignment will work for you, what kind of animation you can do. It's not everything about what I'm saying, it's also about you learning about something new and go and trying it, try to understand it and what's best for you and how it works. Thanks very much for listening. I'll see you in the next lecture. Hi guys, and welcome to this new lecture about the wiggly selector. We're gonna wiggle again. Remember that we have done the wiggle in the shape layers, and here we are going to use it for per character animation and wiggle some characters and some graphic. It is very interesting. If you use it a bit, in my opinion, you are smooth with it and you don't give it, huge motions where everything is moving on the screen. Yet, if you have an animation where it requires things are moving very fast, it will be also very interesting. There are some special things and some different things about the wiggly selector in per character animation that are different from the shape layers. Let's start. We have our text layer here, and if you come to Animator or to animate, you don't find the wiggle here at all. Because the wiggle is based on one of the transformations, any one of them, then you will need firstly to create, for example, a position animator. When you create the animator, you can come to add, and now you have the selector here. You can choose wiggly or range or expression. Let's choose the wiggly for now. Cool. So now you have a range selector and the wiggly selector one. You notice they are both at the same level and they can operate same. Let's take the wiggly selector, and we are on the position now. We have the position here. We can give it, for example, just to demonstrate to you, let's say 50 by 50. As soon as you start playing, it will start wiggling 50 by 50. So 50 on the left and 50 on the right. Of course, it will go diagonal and so on. Let's put it at 5. Let's be reasonable, because 5 will make it much nicer. It's really smoothly wiggling here. If you open the wiggle selector here, we have the mode, the maximum amount, the minimum amount. They are all very interesting, and you come and fiddle with them, but actually they will help you to make the wiggle a bit better. The most interesting is the wiggles per second. I usually go for one wiggle per second, make it very smooth. Okay, and the correlation, we will see how to work on it here. It's a bit different. So now we have the position only. We can add, just like the selector, the range selector, we can add. Let's add a property. For example, we go to blur. Let's add some blur. If you add the blur here, you will have another effect, which is pretty cool. You notice what's happening here. They're going, it's like they are in the water, inside the water, swimming. And we can add another one property, which one I like is the fill. And we take RGB, it's okay. Now you have a very nice effect happening, and it will help you a lot in your animation. I use it mainly to attract attention in the corner of the screen or something like this. I will show you. Another thing we can add here that we didn't add is the tracking. Now notice the tracking here will give some tracking, meaning some space in between the characters. If you add the tracking amount, you notice how it's gonna, bump a bit. Okay, that's a lot. So we'll add, let's say 10 will do. Cool. So now you see this, we created a wavy movement for the layer all itself per character, and it's pretty nice and pretty smooth. Now you can come to correlation and play with the correlation. The effect here is really very noticeable. If you put it to 0, there is 0 correlation in between the wiggle for every character. But if you put it to 100, now the whole layer, if you like, is moving and is wiggling, which is pretty impressive. If you have an underwater scene, that will be wonderful. A space scene, that will be also very interesting. If you put it at 80, that's my preference, and then it will wiggle a bit less. How do I use that? Now you see it's moving a lot, so I will move the tracking amount to 5 only. That will do. And the way I will use it is to take the characters, for example, stretch them down, just make them pretty small, and put it here. Okay, even I will do it smaller than that. Just put it, for example, in the corner, and put a rectangle or something on top to attract attention. And here you can just adjust it. So when you play here, you will see the effect of the wiggle, and you attract attention to this one. I usually don't use it as introduction to a title or something like this. I will use it, just subtle here, making sure that I'm attracting attention to what I have here. For example, a website address, the name of the movie or something like this. It's pretty cool. I will make it even more subtle, more smooth, smoother, and put it at 0.5, for example. Reduce the the position to 3, and you notice it's really very elegant the way it is now, and it will do some nice animation for you. So this is the wiggle effect. You got to come here and play with it, do your own creativity. Okay, thanks very much for listening. That's all for the Wiggly, and I hope you'll come here and play with it and use my advice here. It is nice when you put it in the corner. See you in the next lecture. Hi guys, this is your practice activity for this section. I chose to give you something useful like a lower third where you can write some text or some sentence explaining your video. Even the video is included in the download so you can practice immediately. So what is this about? We want to create a box and we want the explanation to come in inside a rectangle. You see the rectangle is coming in, then the letters or the words are coming, one after the other. That's a simple exercise, but bit useful. If you have a video that you want to give some explanation, you can use this one. Of course, you don't have to limit yourself to what I have done. You can expand it and make it even more beautiful. In the next lecture, I will explain to you how I created this simple animation or simple lower third or explanation lower third. See you then. So let's preview what we have here. This is a small practice activity or a short one. And we have the box and we want the words to come one by one. Then the box will go away. So we have only 2 lines of text. The first one, jogging, and then try. But you, of course, after we do that, you can have like 10 lines, whatever you want, or the explanation for the whole movie. So let's start. We create a new composition, for example. We call it a practice PCA, per character animation. Okay. Now, the first thing I want to drop the movie. I will take the movie and drop it. So it's over here. I'm happy with the movie where it starts and where it ends. So now we want to draw the rectangle. We come to the rectangle tool and we make sure we deselect everything and we draw our rectangle. We can use the space bar to put it a bit down, for example. Now we come to align and we align it to in the middle of the composition. Good. Let's do it again to make sure. Fine. Now we need to take care of the anchor point. We take pan behind, take the anchor point and put it on this side here. Cool. It's snapping nicely. Now I want to animate this one. I'll open position and scale, pressing P and Shift S. Come after 1 second. This is exactly where I want it. I will keyframe the position and the scale using the stopwatch to start the animation. Come to the beginning. Remove the scaling from here, put it at 0. And then in the position, just move the position using the values here, just put it over here. Let's look at our animation. We go to preview and it's coming up nicely. It's rendering very slow now. Cool. That's it. Not bad. Now let's start putting the text in. I will come over here anywhere and I will take text and click inside. I will say jogging. Or jogging is a healthy, I forgot what I wrote the other one, healthy exercise. Cool. Now I want to center it. I will just center it like this because it's snapping, it will snap in the middle. So I'm fine with the text here. I will open now the text and immediately go to animate and go to position animation and take the text down. Okay, let's put it, no, not this way, let's put it over here. Cool. That's one. Then I need more. I need the opacity. I will use the opacity here, put it at 0. Cool. Then I need the blur, and I will hike a bit the blur. That's okay. So now we don't have an animation yet. So we'll come to the beginning of the layer. I'm going to start it from the beginning. Come to the range selector here. Let's make this one bigger a bit. And keyframe the start and go to 1 second, for example, if I like. You can make it shorter and make it 100%. But we don't want it per character. So we come to advanced. You learned all this. I say based on, I will use words. Let's look at our animation. Now, of course, it's coming before the rectangle is coming in the picture. Cool. What we will do, we will take the layer here and move it to this side. And that will be much better. Remember, we learned these things. We learned how to animate then time. and this is the timing that's happening now. And it's pretty useful, it's pretty practical instead of moving the keyframes. And also if you duplicate your layers, it will be easier to manipulate. Fine, so we did the first one, it's coming in, that's cool. Let's open the U. Now we want it to come out. Of course, we'll put it over here. You notice this text is coming word by word, so the viewer is able to read while the text is coming in. So you don't have to put the waiting time, you know, for very long, the staple time. Just make it 1 second. And now how do we take it out? What we are going to do is use the end instead of using the start. I will keyframe the end here, and we take it up pretty speedy like this from the end. Let's look at our animation. It comes in, the text comes in, stays a bit, and comes out. Now you can make it a bit more waiting time. Fine, so that was the first sentence. It's not bad. Let's look at our animation before we start duplicating. We shorten the timeline. I press N to shorten the timeline. Let's look at our animation. We're happy from everything, and it's coming out fast enough. Cool. What I will do now is to duplicate the layer. So now I have another layer. I will double click on the text layer. Let's stop it a bit here. We double click on it to edit it. It is good to exercise once a week. I guess so. Fine. This is done. We click out and we move our text. So when we come here, it say it's good to exercise once a week. Let's take our work area and make it bigger. We choose our 2 layers and open the keyframe. Now we need to adjust it. So this one, we time it here. As soon as this disappears, the next layer will come in, and here you are, is done. Let's say preview, and we see all our animation. The first sentence has come in. I hope I didn't make a spelling mistakes, and the sentence comes out. Now what we need to do is to remove our rectangle. So it makes sense. Let's say you put 5, 6 of them, you know, you can time them here, you can have so many layers if you want. Then at the end, what you would like to do is to remove the box. We don't want it there when the explanation is over. So I will keyframe, for example, I will come to 8. I will keyframe the position and the scale, come a bit longer, few seconds, okay, and just take it out from here. So it's gonna move outside. Actually, what you do is to take it back to the scale first, then move it out. It will be enough to have a good animation. Let's see it on slow motion here. Yeah, cool. Here you are. So the text comes in, it's rendering now, and it will come with the first sentence, stay a bit, come with the second sentence, stay much longer, then it's removed, then the text, the box is removed. That's fine, but I think the box isn't too far. Okay, so I will take these ones and move the box over here, or the rectangle, so it comes out just here. We should have started removing the rectangle. Here you are. Let's play an animation. Jogging is a healthy exercise. Oh, we have a spelling mistake, in fact. Let's go and double click on the text. We bring it over here, double click, it's good. Now I have a problem. You notice this text is not aligned. What I will do is to come to the keyframe of position for the text. You know, the text is coming here, so I will come to the position, or in fact, this is anywhere. We don't have keyframe for the position. Just move the text. I will remove the snapping. Just make sure that the text, when it comes all together, I can just adjust it. Let's remove the snapping. Okay, here you are. Maybe it worked very fine. Cool. It's good not to make spelling mistakes. Okay, here you are, and you have your animation. Now you can download this one and use it everywhere you want to use it, inside your videos, and give explanations to your viewers. Now this is a simple animation, but it's very useful. Really, you want the person to watch the movie and read your explanation, not to, you know, just look at your explanation. Why fancy motion graphic? So sometimes you want your motion graphics to be simple because you want to draw more attention to your video or whatever is happening in the other parts of the motion graphics that is more important. Thank you very much for listening, and I hope this section was very useful for you. If you have any questions, you can ask them directly in this lecture, or ask them in the question and answer in the course section.